Welcome back to This Film Not Rated, a branch of the Music City Drive-In Podcast Network where we try not to rate movies or rank them. The world seems to think there's an objective truth to a movie, so, you might know this before, but we're on a quest to find that mysterious objective truth. And oh boy, is this going to be a hard one for Curtis to do today. We try to make it through 15 questions, completely factual, only no subjective opinions. If you make it, great, there's rewards. And once we say something subjective, we kind of drop the shtick and we kind of talk more over a few simple questions about how we felt about the movie. And I think this is one I'm really excited to talk about, so I think it's a good episode, I hope, today. But, what is it? Today Curtis is in the gauntlet. What are we talking about?
Today we're talking about the newly released Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, the new Ryan Coogler film. I as excited as I am to talk about this, I don't know how the hell I'm going to get past question 1.
Well, the cool thing is I have my obnoxious buzzer, and you don't have yours yet. So
Wakanda Forever is of course the sequel to Black Panther, but it's basically the story of Shuri, the sister of T'Challa, going through the grieving process while also coming across a underwater city and learning a lot about a new society. I don't know how to describe this.
Title of the movie's Wakanda Forever.
Yeah.
This is about Wakanda's ability to survive without its leaders.
There we go.
We'll get into more details about it because we do talk full spoilers on this podcast. After we go ahead and travel on into Curtis's anxiety attack.
Yay. All right.
Curtis, is Wakanda Forever a good movie or a bad movie?
A quick look at Rotten Tomatoes will show that both critically and with audience scores, it's being received rather well. With an 84% critical rating and a 95% audience rating.
That is a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What was the best scene in the movie?
Well, the movie itself has Shuri as the main character. And the scene that seems to get to the core of her conflict with the film comes fairly early on with the fireside talk with her mom. I see you tried to... where she is refusing to believe that there is an ancestral plane, and she's talking about everything to the mind.
Okay, and what about that scene?
Oh, I just said that's the core of Shuri's conflict throughout the film, like her personal conflicts. I don't know. The scene itself is Shuri's mother trying to, a year later, trying to get Shuri to go through a grieving process, and her basically saying that I don't need to do this, kind of like pushing those emotions down, and she's doing that throughout the entire film. It's the first time you really see it. After the desperate opening plea where she's trying desperately to find a way to save her brother.
So which scene is quote-unquote better? I know this is not fair because this isn't one of the questions. The opening scene?
Mm-hmm.
Or does the second one only work because of the opening scene? Or like...
Well, putting it that way, yeah, that scene has a lot more impact because of that opening scene. But again... I don't know if that's subjective or not. It sounds subjective to me because someone...
Well, that is. If that's your answer, then...
Yeah. The trailer, when that hit, felt immensely like a funeral procession to Chadwick Boseman, and that's essentially what we got at the very beginning of the film. This whole... like, half of this film is basically honoring and mourning the life of T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman, and the impact he's had on the MCU, and there are a whole lot of parallels that you could draw with that alone. It almost feels through the movie like the cast and crew are grieving the loss of Chadwick Boseman through this film alone.
Yeah, sometimes I agree. Sometimes it feels that way to me. Mm-hmm. Other times, there's so much to unpack here.
Yes,
I wanted to watch it again. Yes, because of the trailer, but I just have so much doubt with trailers having any meaning anymore.
Right.
But ultimately, this delivered what I felt like was in the trailer. But that's not, I mean, I watch this because I'll watch anything Ryan Coogler does. Fruitvale Station, Creed, Black Panther, all of those movies, okay, CGI rhinos aside, are really, really work to me and are a little bit a cut above the arena he's playing in. This was unique. Everyone else lives in New York or in America. They live in Wakanda. Mm-hmm. Every movie feels like you have the lead, you have his friends, you have a love interest, you have a villain, you have a villain sidekick, and a mentor.
Yeah.
In this, all of those roles are blurred in favor of just characters being what they are.
Yeah, the closest thing you have to a mentor would have been T'Challa, and he does, you don't even see him on screen. He dies in Act 1. M'Baku, kind of.
That's the thing. It's so non-traditional that he's kind of going through his own arc. They're growing together.
Yeah, he almost seems like a surrogate father figure to Shuri.
Right.
Yeah,
and Namor, the villain, very non-traditional way of, at least in the trend of the MCU, of dealing with that conflict.
Yeah.
Very familiar conflict. But,
Yeah. Weirdly enough, I think Wakanda Forever feels a lot more like a Ryan Coogler movie than the first Black Panther did. Because something that I did notice, especially with the Creed, is Ryan Coogler is really good at directing emotional delivery and making sure that those emotions...
Actors.
Yeah. And making sure that those emotions are
true, have verisimilitude.
Yeah, they're perceived accurately throughout the film. You see that you see that a lot in Creed, especially with Michael B. Jordan and his love interest, and the way that he directs Rocky, and he knows how to write and direct relationships exceedingly well, and you see that in spades with Wakanda Forever, and all focusing around Shuri and her immediate circle. And even extending a little bit once you get to know Namor a bit more. It's weird, but it's also one of the least actiony Marvel movies that I've seen. I think you got 4 action set pieces that don't last too long. You have the opening fight scene on the ship. You have the car chase scene. You have the initial attack on Wakanda, and you have the final fight.
As opposed to Iron Man 1? Where you have Golmira and the ending.
Well, I guess I'm thinking more recent Marvel movies then.
Yeah, but again, I think of Civil War, and I think of how that movie... I'll go ahead and jump into the parallels here, because here's the thing. Mm-hmm. In total, my thoughts, to sum them up, about Wakanda Forever would be, this is still familiar territory. It's blockbuster entertainment.
Sure.
But it is grounded in something very, very real.
Yes.
They connect T'Challa's death to Chadwick Boseman's by talking about how it was something he had kept private and didn't announce to people until very near the end. Mm-hmm. And keeping it vague in the MCU to pay respect to, not just giving him cancer or something like that.
Right.
The thing about that, though, is this tragedy happened with the one franchise that already had an arc that was set to be explored, probably in a different movie, where, spoiler alert, Shuri's Black Panther.
Yeah.
So I feel like what this originally was set to be now that T'Challa is a king, he has to deal with Namor. And I don't feel like Namor is that different from Killmonger or that different from Baron Zemo.
No, I don't think so.
And I think the whole revenge is like a poison thing goes back to Spider-Man 3. So in terms of the main character going dark, and she went dark. The thing is, every once in a while there's a movie that plops along that is familiar, but is done better and warrants the title of a certain respect for it being artfully done and being the version of that story you've seen multiple times.
Yeah.
And I think Wakanda Forever is this for superhero movies where the hero is like, I'm going to cross over the edge and maybe lose myself. And that line is if I kill a person or not.
Yeah.
So, Civil War, you have government intervention that causes a dividing line between two clans. And the two clans feel like the other one is the reason why they're going to have a problem.
Yep.
And that pits them together. Pits them against one another. You essentially have the same story, just trade out Black Panther for Ironheart. Like from Civil War, Black Panther was introduced at that time. This time you have Ironheart.
Right.
And then you trade out Okoye becoming Midnight Angel?
Yeah.
Was the name of it?
I think so.
For Spider-Man. And then chop off the old tired cliche of there was a secret villain behind the strings all along and you have an easy explanation for it. And you get Wakanda Forever, where the characters have to face their choices and hold true to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. Now, you get a sense more of that of Wakanda as a city in this one than you did, I think, in Black Panther 1. A sense of the civilization, and that's very intentional because then by exploring that you get to see the parallels between Wakanda and Toblacan, I think is the name of the
Talocan.
Atlantis,
but Talocan.
Yeah, they can't call it Atlantis for whatever reason. It is Talocan, which is fine though. I actually think I like that name better.
What they did is stripped a Greek mythology background and replaced it with a Mayan Aztec Latin history. So the character, this is a big thing that I want to talk about, so I'm going to wait a minute for you to get into it.
But I don't know why. I feel like you said, it feels a lot more grounded, a lot more real and down to earth than most others. The first 30 minutes of this movie is Shuri and the family grieving over T'Challa's death and wondering what to do next, and it's because of Ironheart that they get drawn into this conflict to begin with, and it's like this weird set of connecting circumstances and storylines as to why this is all happening, and then we get Martin Freeman back, who's barely in it. Like he's almost there, kind of just to move the story along when it needs to be, and outside of that, he's just like in the background.
I can see it feeling that way. I disagree. I think that he's the viewpoint into the America of it all. And that's the whole reason the two countries are fighting. So I feel like if you don't have him and you don't have a viewpoint character, you just have to cut to random paint by numbers villain scenes of people in government offices talking and saying, are we in motion? We're in motion. And there's like a picture in the background of like a sonar going off and then cut to what's going on. Instead, we get engagement and I think it makes sense that there would be some level of interplay between agencies.
Yeah.
And it kind of allows this character that they're building with Julie Louis-Dreyfus to sink into having more and more importance before they get to Thunderbolts.
I mean, it's pretty obvious that Ironheart was coming to this one. I liked her introduction to it. Just kind of like this, like very Tony Stark in her own way. Like, not the same personality, but the attitude is like, okay, well, you say I can't do this. Well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it in half the time that you said I couldn't do it in.
It really reminded me of what Tony Stark, that character did have such an arc, you know? Because it really makes you think of like who he is when he's not taking himself as seriously.
Yeah.
Like the Tony Stark that's like, no, you can't have my suits. Or is like, flying around doing whatever, like to peace, haha. And she very much feels like the spirit of she's very true to her own character. I've been wanting to look up more and more when I look at comic book movies, what comics they're based on. And there's a specific run from a specific author that included multi-dimensional exploration with Black Panther that they used for the first Black Panther. And the comics that are the run of Shuri taking over as Black Panther, there's some influences.
Okay.
There's also the ones that you pull that are between Black Panther and Namor, but there are so many things that have to be adjusted, and this has been all the way to the beginning. Like, this is a universe where you could just paint by numbers, use the comics as storyboards, but you have to adapt things.
Yeah.
And so every character in this movie is playing true to something from the comics that feels recognizable and feels like what I know of characters, even if I don't read a lot about them. Angela Bassett. I didn't think of this until after the movie was over.
Okay. That
they let her show her natural hair is white and massive. That technically her role is Storm.
Okay. You may have to explain that one.
Storm from X-Men is T'Challa's wife. Long term in the comics. Yeah. And they never really would have had the chance to do that. Plus, he's in a relationship with Nakia. And when they made Black Panther in 2018, that was before the merger had gone through.
Right.
And so there are these adaptations they had made. But here, you have the concept of her. And I almost wish, I would not want to do disservice to the story by doing this. I don't actually think this should be a thing. But a part of me thought it would be really neat of a sort of a wink if Namor had introduced himself as a mutant and thought of himself as powerful and unique and kept that secret. And you found out that one of the reasons Wakanda prospers the way that it does is because she can control the weather.
Yeah.
And Namor, that actor managed to make me believe that Namor has been there the whole time and we just never saw him.
Yeah, I can see that. Just very, very isolationist, doesn't want anyone to actually stumble across this thing, and as soon as someone attempts to, he retaliates instantly. So I can understand that. Like if anyone got close, they probably ended up dead or lost, and you could attribute that to the Bermuda Triangle and why people are.
Here's the thing: is it's so true to how he feels in the comics, and it gives me the same icky feeling that makes me not read his comics. The idea that they are not done. My wife pointed this out when we were watching. The conflict is not over.
No.
All we did was have this really dark, icky feeling introduction of the new Black Panther, and she did go through a hero's journey thing, and then it's like everything is open ended, and it's kind of been that way. And the thing is, that's exactly how Namor feels in the comics, whether it's Civil War or whatever it is he's like, me and mine are on our own, we hate you all, and we're coming for you, and I'm not a villain, I will save my people. Just like Spider-Man saves New York, just like anyone saves their territory, he will save his people, but he is lethal about it, and so that's why he isn't to cross a line. You throw in there a complication where he has the hots for Susan Storm, and you get Namor. And that's how he feels. Now, I don't know the intricacies of his stuff because, again, that feeling has always kicked me off of, exploring him more as a comic reader.
Right.
But to have, him feel alive like that...
Right.
The opening scene was genuinely a little unnerving to me, probably because my expectations are not... for blockbuster movies are struck down a little this year.
Right.
So to have something that felt so not paint by numbers and eerie, and then to have something move unnaturally but feel like the special effects were finished enough that the weight was there, and the sound design was good. Yeah. This movie, I have to tell you, all right, and then I'll stop for a second.
Okay.
I immediately came home and I watched the first 20 minutes of Black Panther. What you'll see that made me feel really weird about how I thought the second movie was so different is Angela Bassett shouts out to Chadwick Boseman, show him who you are, before he beats M'Baku in his challenge. And he and Nakia walk the streets of Wakanda, and the city and the children and the people are bustling. And maybe it's because I got attached more after the second one, but I was like, holy crap, this is exactly the city that I just saw blown to smithereens. How did I miss this?
I don't remember any of that, so all right, that's interesting. But
and there are so many echoes just in that first arc where you go all the way up to he goes to see his father in the ancestral plane and comes back. You watch that and you will see like 80,000 things that are paid off and in reflection on Shuri.
Yeah.
In a way that highlights the importance of her character, which is the knock on tradition.
Right. Anyway, but speaking about Shuri, like I don't know, I really liked her character in this one. Who she met in the ancestral plane, I thought for her character was so perfect and so unexpected that and again it made sense for where she was at that point in her development. It makes sense that of course she would want to see Killmonger, the person who is willing to do what it takes to as Michael B. Jordan said in the film, to get business done, or something along those lines. That's who she needed to see at the time. And just the way that they did that ancestral plane, it was so simple. So like I think of the ancestral plane from Black Panther 1, and I think of CGI African plane with the one tree, but in it's still tinted purple, but in this one it's still tinted purple. She's coming up out of the water, kind of like a rebirth, and it's just the throne room
where her mom died,
where her mom died, and it's just the throne room with purple lighting. It's just that simple, and I loved it.
And he's sitting on the throne.
Namor, I thought, was a pretty well built character. I couldn't really poke any holes in his motivations and his story. Everything made sense for his backstory and what he was presently doing. I could understand his conflict with the surface dwellers and everything going on. I even understood like why he was trying to reach out to Wakanda as an ally to begin with. Like I don't think I really have any complaints with Namor, if I'm being really honest. So.
The patience that he had to not kill Riri. And then the patience that he had, like, that they tried to show by him in the end, claiming, he could see how it was beneficial to them in the future for him to yield. That patience makes so much sense for a character who's essentially slightly immortal.
Yeah, he's hundreds of years old. I think close to thousands, if not thousands.
Hundreds. It was 1,500 something that they were showing when he was born.
Right.
I know there was this whole fuss about it, and I know people are going to have their issues with it. There's the people who want the comics to be, translated verbatim, because you have the people who are like, okay, well, Iron Man fans got their movie. Spider-Man fans have gotten their movie 8 million times. I'm a fan of Namor, and you're going to put him on screen, and I'm not going to get to see the Namor I'm a fan of translated. I'm like, I can't speak for you, but I saw the Namor that I know. Yeah. And in the end, it's a superhero movie.
Yeah.
There's a villain. The hero has to make sure that they function as a hero, and they're tested on whether or not they will stay a hero, and that's it. That's the whole movie.
Yeah.
The reason that this movie is so good to me is because they pack so much into the visuals, and they wrote so carefully and tightly a story that works in and of itself while laying the weight of it on what happened in the real world, so it hits harder than almost any other movie.
Right.
But Shang-Chi, there were traces, because Tony Leung has such a history of this, of the empathy, of the romance that they didn't spend any time on.
Right.
The whole drive of that character is he's longing for his wife or Shang-Chi's mother, whatever, and we spend so little time on that, and the few glimpses we get of that, like the mirror image of Shang-Chi and Tony Leung spinning just like he and his wife did. Doing that, it's so powerful when you get it right. And this movie has something like that in almost every other sequence.
Right.
Has something powerful, like Killmonger just being there.
Yeah.
Was so right. The whole time I'm sitting here thinking, like, it's way too close for them to do the thing they did with Egon from Ghostbusters, right?
Oh, I'm so glad they didn't do that. I would have been so mad.
Honestly, right at the end there, I thought what we were going to have is just a hand with the original Black Panther suit hold her shoulder, like Angela Bassett explained.
Right.
And that's all it was going to be. And she was just going to like hold the hand for a minute.
Right.
But instead, what we got was a beautiful thing that Ryan Coogler is doing with these Black Panther movies that he doesn't do in his other movies and no other Marvel movie is doing. Where he just jumps back and forth between what's real in canon in the movies and what's in the real world.
Yeah.
He did this in the first movie and he does this in the second one, where non-diegetic music is responded to by the people in the movie. Like the champion music, dun 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 dun, and then everyone in the crowd goes at the beats in between.
Right.
So the people in the movie are just chanting like over and over again. But we are hearing this whole huge thing.
Right.
This happened again in the movie where they played music, but it was the people from Talokan singing.
Right.
And when we start going in the submarine and out of the submarine, so you can hear it's coming through the walls, is like the only reason I could even hold track of that. And it comes back right then with T'Challa, where he's smiling because you know it's behind the scenes footage. And that is Chadwick Boseman. That she is singing to say goodbye to an ancestor.
Yeah.
And so that is both true to the movie and real.
Yeah.
She's grieving the human and the character at the same time.
Yeah, and you said, that's why I think that's why this film does hit harder, because it's so intertwined with reality that it's like unlike any other Marvel film, which I think you've said already, but like it's true enough to be stated again.
And did you stay for probably one of the most important mid-credit sequences?
Of course I stayed.
In all of the movies?
Of course I stayed, yeah.
What do you think?
So it kind of felt like, hey, he's gone, but here's a little piece of him that's still here.
I agree, and I think it works just on that level.
Yeah.
So if Marvel doesn't want to commit to this, they have an out. But I think it was more than that. I think Marvel... They made a PR statement a little while ago around the time that Loki happened.
Okay.
Because the big deal with Loki is they've killed him 3 times and brought him back to life.
Right.
So, with Iron Man dying, the idea is, can we bring him back? Black Widow, can we bring her back? And the answer is they want there to be real stakes. So, the question has always been, do you just have the characters keep going and then have them trade over legacies like James Bond or, something like that. Which, I mean, by all accounts, you could do. I mean, they had to do it with Spider-Man. But then Marvel has been gradually giving you the answer over and over. With Spider-Man, they brought back the other 2 characters. They're individual people. There's no chance of them being the same,
right.
They have drawn a hard line in the sand and said, maybe one day you will have T'Challa as Black Panther again. Because we've introduced that there is a T'Challa that is in line to succeed the throne that would take on the mantle.
Right, and you you like with Iron Man, you got that a bit with Ironheart here, where it's the first time I think since Endgame that I saw that old familiar shot of a face surrounded by darkness with the UI screen up in front of it. I don't think I've seen that since Endgame, and it was like this old familiar feeling coming back. It was like yeah.
I thought it was perfect. The freezing problem. Mm-hmm. Mirrors the air problem.
Yes.
That was her Mark II flight thing.
Yeah.
There's this one shot in Iron Man that someone accidentally caught him flying like on their phone.
Yeah.
When he's flying Mark II. Mm-hmm. And she points out, when I've been flying, there's a whole YouTube channel dedicated to sightings of me.
Right.
I thought for a second they were gonna do the whole like he was gonna do like a Jon Favreau inspired suit up.
No,
I'm okay that he didn't do that.
Right.
But yeah, the HUD display, like you're saying, everything they hit just one or two beats that told you she's from MIT, he's from MIT, Spider-Man and all his friends were going to MIT. For some reason, just like every old person gets Alzheimer's in the MCU, they all go to MIT.
Right.
So MIT is like the tip top of the MCU.
Yeah.
Maybe it is in the real world. Maybe I don't know enough. But
and like this is I think a kind of like with Black Panther. I think this is a really good introduction to a character that not a whole lot of people know about. Now they're aware, and now they can delve into that character a little bit more.
Yeah, and they did. I honestly, I think there could have been a way, like when we talk about our questions, like what would you cut from the movie? Mm-hmm. You could have not had her.
Yeah.
But a bit of me is suspicious that the other scriptwriter in the room laid the groundwork of Civil War.
Yeah.
Like, literally, okay, so if Shuri is Iron Man, how does Iron Man meet Peter Parker?
Literally walks into his house.
Yeah. And is like, you gotta come with me.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh gosh, really? And he's like, yeah.
Takes a little bit of convincing, but
yeah.
They almost had to kidnap this one though.
And then there was a whole chase scene that went after it, the car chase scene. But like, yeah. I feel like it's a remix of beats from that movie.
Yeah, you even get a similar line at the end of this one from Shuri as Black Panther, as Chadwick Boseman gave at the end of Civil War, where it's vengeance has consumed him. I will not let it consume me any longer. It's said a little bit differently by Shuri, but it's the same line and it's the same sentiment.
And to be fair, I used to do this all the time with origin stories till I got way too burned out on them. I think this is different from traditional vengeance. Yeah. I think when Shuri says she wants to burn the world, she's angry at things she can't control.
Yes.
And she's just an angry person in that moment. You know, the person who's saying, what are those, and memeing all over the place in Black Panther 1 has had her whole family ripped from her. And to double down on that in the story, that was them digging in and saying, okay, but this story is about loss and all that.
Yes. Yeah, the loss and grieving are like the main points. You get that with Namor's story, how they were forced out of their lands, and I think I said this before. That's the main connecting point you get with Shuri and Namor is the loss of loved ones and the grieving and wanting the world to burn through things that they can't control. Namor actively tries to take control of the situation more so than Shuri does, in a more violent way than Shuri would want to go about it, which is why you get that end scene where right before she's about to give that final blow to Namor, Angela Bassett shows up in, I think, a vision. I think she's seeing her. I don't know if it's in her mind or if she's there. It's
There's just a little bit of special effects to let you know she's an ancestor. It's an ancestral plane thing.
Right. But it's shown as she is seeing that at the same time she's about to strike down Namor, and it's what calms her down. For the little bit that Duke Winston is in the film, he's fantastic. I love everything about his character. He's clearly, him and his tribe that were banished are slowly starting to come back into the fold at the start of this film, and by the end, you get that one thing is, I'm sorry, the Black Panther's not going to be here today. Who wants to challenge me for the throne? And it cuts to black, and it's perfect.
In the plot leak,
Mm-hmm.
Most of the things that were in there before this movie came out came true. So I just want to take the time and say to whoever leaked the plot to this movie, I hope that you realize by watching this how little your leaks matter, because there's a complete absence of images and sounds, which are what a movie is made out of. When you just throw out the entire story and think that that's going to like be exciting or spoil the experience of someone. I think if anything, this movie shows me more than any recent movie that how you tell a story is more important by far than what the story is. Oh, and M'Baku is king. That was in the leak.
Oh yeah, no, by it cutting to black after he says that, that's the impression that it gives off. I think it's a visual theme that, like, just talking about this, I've noticed water is constantly used as a symbol of rebirth or new life or a new start. Like with Shuri, when like I said before,
until it kills her mom.
Until it kills her mom. But with the Shuri, when she goes to the ancestral plane, as I said before, she comes out of water when she becomes the Black Panther. When Namor is the person who was born to be the new ruler of these people, he's born in water.
There's sort of again, even in the most, but I don't want to miss this. Even in the most dumbed down aspects of the movie, just the mindless like fighting. You're right in the sense that it is the Talokans who are turning water into something destructive and deadly.
Yes.
It's something that means life and resource and all that everywhere else. And they're twisting that.
Yeah.
And it's just one, like, all their bombs are water bombs.
Yeah.
Like, it's, I don't know. Everything in this movie has some more thought put into it than is normally...
Yeah.
I think there. Hi, I'm Eric from This Film Not Rated, and I bumped something, and unfortunately the end of this episode is lost because my audio cut out 50 minutes into an hour and 5-minute thing. Now, there were several topics that I would have been excited to talk about, but mostly what I need you to know is that this is This Film Not Rated. You can find us on Twitter at TFNRCMEL. And we're a branch of the Music City Drive-In Podcast Network, so head on over to themusiccitydrivein.com.
All right. You can follow me on Twitter at 90sgamer407 and on Twitch at Merrick_tainment. And again, if I ever get back into my YouTube stuff, I do have a handle for that one now. It's at TalkAnimeGA.
And me at HighContrastFLM on Twitter. So please message us, reach out to us if you'd like to be on the podcast, if you'd like to give any criticism to the podcast. I don't know, but I think it's fair to say that this isn't typically how podcasts should end, especially when you cut out such golden material. Of course, the one time that we end up absolute geniuses and crack the code and solve social problems that have been pondered for centuries, well, that's lost forever. So